Let's talk first about the games that I am most interested in watching this week. As I said, with the Dolphins being a team that's not really worth watching, I'm just going to enjoy all the other teams. I'm going to love watching Cleveland play. I'm going to love watching Baltimore play, who the Dolphins are playing in week one. I'm going to enjoy watching Atlanta, the Vikings, who are playing in week one against each other. You know, there's so many teams, the Bears, so many teams that are exciting to watch, and I'm just going to watch them all and just drink it in and not have any worries about who wins or loses the games. I'm just going to get to watch the games as a fan and enjoy the damn things. So games to watch in week one, Bears versus Packers, first game of the season. That is a game to watch. I mean, Bears versus Packers, the most historic rivalry in the NFL. The Bears, I think, they're a real Super Bowl contender this year. And the Packers are always a Super Bowl contender as long as Aaron Rodgers is in town. Now, I don't like the Packers as much this year. As I like the Bears. I think the Bears are just preposterously stacked. But man, the Packers and Bears, that's always a great matchup. Last year, week one, when they played, that was a phenomenal matchup. You know, Aaron Rodgers down by 1,000,000 points, gets knocked out of the game, somehow comes back and wins it. You know, so those are the kinds of games you expect out of the Bears and Packers. And what a way to open the NFL season. Now, another game, the Falcons and the Vikings. This is another game of two legitimate Super Bowl contenders this year. You know, Atlanta, their defense is healthy now, and they've got all the playmakers on offense. Like, it's a wild offense. Losing Tevin Coleman hurts a little bit, but man, Matt Ryan was an MVP just a couple of years ago. They still have Julio Jones. Calvin Ridley's coming into his own as a second-year wide receiver. I'm expecting big things out of Atlanta this year, but I'm expecting equally big things out of the Vikings this year. You know, the Vikings, man, they got obviously just an absolutely stacked offense with playmakers, and that's not even the strength of their team. The strength of the team is the defense over there. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. So this week one matchup, don't sleep on Atlanta's D. Atlanta's D is going to be much improved this year, and Atlanta and Minnesota, that is going to be a knockdown, drag-out war in week one of the NFL, and you know, It's crazy to talk about playoff implications right away, but the NFC is so competitive. It's just ridiculous. And both these teams are real competitors in the NFC. So, you know, taking an L here, that could be serious towards the end of the season. I don't want to overstate a week one game, but man, that is going to be a banger of a game. It's my personal game of the week for sure. Now, another really exciting game in the AFC is Kansas City versus Jacksonville. I mean, obviously Jacksonville had a bit of a dip down last year, but that defense is still intact. It's still an elite defense. Kansas City, most dynamic offense in the NFL last year. We're expecting similar results this year, probably not quite to the same level as last year. You know, you can't expect Pat Mahomes to have that kind of a year again. Defenses are going to figure him out. He takes a lot of risks, and it paid off for him. It seemed like almost every time last year. You have to expect some of those balls to bounce in the other direction this year. So I definitely favor the Chiefs in that one, but the Jaguars, maybe Nick Foles can give them a little bit extra life. If Nick Foles can sling the ball at all, it'll open up the game for Leonard Fournette. Everybody wants to talk about how Leonard Fournette's yards per carry are so low, but yards per carry are kind of a stupid stat if you think about it. There's so many factors that go into yards per carry, like the fact that Blake Bortles was their quarterback and nobody was threatened by the throwing game at all. Everybody knew that the only threat on the Jaguars offense was Leonard Fournette. So they're stacking boxes. They're playing run D. Leonard's is hurt for the majority of the season and not really motivated to come back to a terrible team. So I'm excited to see how Fournette bounces back this year. I think it's a bounce back year for Fournette. I unfortunately didn't get any shares of him in fantasy football, but I digress about that. We'll get to fantasy football later. Excuse me. Now, the last game that I have as one of my games to watch this week, a must-watch. It's another primetime game. The Chiefs, Jaguars, and Falcons, Vikings are 1 o'clock games, so you're going to have to pick between those two. Maybe if you got two monitors like I do, you can watch them both. But the first game, Bears-Packers, obviously a primetime game. And this other game that I want to really watch this week, Houston and New Orleans, another primetime game. in New Orleans. New Orleans in primetime at home. Very, very difficult to beat, but man, Houston's got a good team this year. I think Houston and the Chiefs are probably the teams to beat in the AFC this year. Obviously, you guys might think it's the Patriots. I'm biased against the Patriots. I hate them. I never really think they're that good, but they're like the Packers. As long as they got number 12 back there, they can just find ways to win. The Packers are the NFC Patriots like that. It doesn't matter what kind of team they have around. As long as number 12 is in the game, it doesn't matter what the score is. They got a shot at coming back and winning. Just like, the Packers did in week 1 last year against the Bears. And, Patriots against the Falcons, Patriots against everybody. And so those are my games to watch this week. Those are the 4 games that you got to tune into this week. Everybody's going to be tuning into the Bears, Packers, and Houston, New Orleans because those are primetime games. But if you're looking for games at 1 o'clock on Sunday to watch, you got to tune into the Falcons and Vikings. And then the second game that I would tune into is the Chiefs and the Jaguars. So now let's